My name is Chloe Hayes. I am 32 years old, and I live in San Francisco. I am telling you this story so you understand how my entire life fell apart in a single second. I was 6 months pregnant. My belly was heavy and my feet were swollen. I was standing in our kitchen in Palo Alto writing a note on a yellow pad of paper. That was our life. Notes, hand signals, silence. My husband Richard was deaf. He had been deaf since a motorcycle accident years before we met. I loved him for his silence. I loved him for needing me. I finished the note and waited for him to tap my shoulder. But he didn't tap me. I felt his presence right behind my back. Then I heard a sound that did not belong in our silent home. "Chloe," a voice said, "put the pen down." The sound hit me harder than a physical blow. The room spun. My knees buckled and I grabbed the granite counter to keep from falling. I turned around slowly. My deaf husband was looking right at me. He wasn't struggling to speak. He wasn't reading my lips. The voice was deep, clear, and steady. He could hear me. He could always hear me. It wasn't a miracle. It was the beginning of my nightmare. But before I tell you how everything flipped, like and subscribe, drop a comment. Where are you watching from? My name is Chloe Hayes. I am 32 years old. Before Richard, my life was a quiet, suffocating room that I couldn't find the door to leave. I was 32 years old. In my family, 32 isn't just an age. It is a deadline. It is a siren blaring that something has gone wrong. I remember my 32nd birthday clearly. I didn't want a party, but my mother insisted. She always insisted on things that looked good to the outside world, but felt terrible on the inside. We were at a restaurant in downtown San Francisco, a place with white tablecloths and waiters who whispered. My sister, Jessica, was there. Jessica is 2 years younger than me. She is beautiful, sharp, and loud. She was already married to a corporate lawyer. She had a 2-year-old son and was pregnant with her second. She sat across from me, glowing. She talked about her renovations, her husband's promotion, and her busy, important life. I sat there and crumbled bread onto my plate. I was an architect. I was good at my job. I designed spaces for people to live in, but I felt like I didn't have a life of my own. I was single. I had been single for 3 years. To my mother, this was a sickness. "Chloe," my mother said, swirling her wine glass, "you look tired." "I'm working hard, Mom," I said. "I have a big project due next week." "Work," she scoffed. It wasn't a compliment. "Work is fine, dear, but what are you coming home to? An empty apartment, a cat?" "I don't have a cat," I said softly. "You know what I mean," she snapped. Her eyes were hard. They scanned my face, looking for wrinkles, looking for flaws. "You are too picky. You let the good ones go because you want a fairy tale. Real life isn't a fairy tale, Chloe. Real life is finding someone who can take care of you before you lose your looks." That was the narrative. I was the difficult one. I was the defective daughter. I absorbed her words like poison. I drank them down with my water. I believed her. I felt small. I felt invisible. I looked at Jessica, who was laughing at something her husband whispered, and I felt a deep, aching jealousy. I didn't want her husband. I just wanted to be looked at like that. I wanted to matter to someone. 2 weeks later, my mother called me. Her voice was different. It was excited. It was the voice she used when she found a designer purse on sale. "I found him," she said. "Found who?" I asked. I was at my drafting table, holding a ruler. "The perfect man. His name is Richard. He's the son of my friend from the club, Margaret. He is handsome, Chloe. He is wealthy. He is a tech genius. He sold his first company for millions." "I don't care about money, Mom," I said. "He has a situation," she said, lowering her voice. "He needs someone special, someone kind like you." That was the hook. She used my own insecurity against me. She called me kind. Usually she called me slow or passive, but now I was kind. "What situation?" I asked. "He is deaf," she said. "He was in a terrible motorcycle accident 5 years ago. He lost his hearing completely. He is very shy about it. He doesn't date. He isolates himself. Margaret is worried sick about him. She says he needs a woman who is patient, a woman who isn't just looking for a party." I paused. A deaf man, a man who had been hurt, a man who was lonely just like me. "He sounds nice," I said. "He is perfect," she promised. "Come to dinner on Friday, just meet him." I went. I wore a blue dress because my mother told me blue made me look younger. The dinner was at Margaret's house. Margaret was a tall, imposing woman with silver hair and too much jewelry. She hugged me too tight when I walked in. "You must be Chloe," she said. She looked at me like I was a prize heifer at a county fair. "You have such a gentle face." Then I saw him. Richard was standing by the fireplace. He was tall, with dark hair and broad shoulders. He wore a gray suit that fit him perfectly. He was handsome. Not just okay, he was stunning. He held a glass of sparkling water. He didn't turn when I walked in. Of course he didn't. He couldn't hear me. Margaret walked over and tapped him on the shoulder. He turned. His eyes met mine. They were dark brown, deep and sad. He didn't smile immediately. He just looked at me. It was an intense look. It felt like he was seeing right into my skeleton. "Richard," Margaret signed, her hands moving stiffly. "This is Chloe." He smiled then. It was a small, shy smile. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, leather-bound notepad and a silver pen. He wrote something down and handed it to me. "Hello, Chloe, you look beautiful in blue." I felt a blush rise up my neck. I took the pen. My hand was shaking. "Thank you, Richard. It is nice to meet you. We spent the whole night like that." Passing the notepad back and forth. The silence between us wasn't awkward, it felt intimate. The rest of the table, my mother, his mother, my sister, they were all loud. They clinked glasses and laughed and shouted over each other. But Richard and I were in a bubble. We were in a private world of paper and ink. He wrote, "Do you like being an architect?" I wrote, "I love it. I like making order out of chaos." He wrote, "I understand that. My world is very chaotic since the accident. I like coding because it is structured. It is silent logic." I felt a pang in my chest. He was vulnerable. He was opening up to me. I looked at his hands. They were strong, clean hands. I imagined them typing code. I imagined them riding a motorcycle before the crash. My mother watched us from across the table. She gave me a thumbs up when Richard wasn't looking. I hated her approval, but I also craved it. For the first time in years, I wasn't failing. I was succeeding. I was charming the rich, handsome, tragic man. After dinner, he walked me to my car. The night air was cool. He couldn't hear my heels clicking on the pavement. He opened my car door for me. He didn't try to kiss me. He just took my hand, squeezed it gently, and then wrote one last note. "The world is very loud. You are very quiet. I like that." I drove home with my heart pounding. I didn't feel lonely that night. I felt seen. I felt useful. I thought I was falling in love with a man who needed me. I thought I was special because I was willing to bridge the gap of his silence. I didn't know that the silence was a weapon. I didn't know that every note he wrote was a lie. I didn't know that while I was writing about my hopes and dreams on that paper, he was analyzing me, testing me, judging me. I went to sleep that night hugging my pillow, thinking about his sad brown eyes. I thought I had found my purpose. I thought I was saving him, but I was the one walking into a trap. The relationship moved fast. Or rather, the commitment moved fast. The emotional connection felt slow and deep, like wading into thick water. We didn't go to movies. We didn't go to concerts. We went to quiet parks. We went to museums. We sat in his expensive apartment in Palo Alto, overlooking the bay, and we existed in his silence. I became obsessed with learning American Sign Language, ASL. If I was going to be his partner, I refused to rely on notepads forever. I wanted to speak his language. I wanted to show him and my mother and his mother that I was dedicated. I bought books. I watched videos online. I hired a private tutor, a woman named Sarah who was deaf herself. I met with her 3 times a week before work. I practiced in front of the mirror until my hands cramped. Hungry, tired, love, home, pain, joy. I remember the first time I signed a full sentence to him. We were at a coffee shop 3 months after we met. He was drinking a black coffee, looking out the window. I tapped his hand. He looked at me. I raised my hands. "I would like to go to the beach this weekend with you." He froze. His eyes widened. He looked at my hands, then at my face. He looked genuinely shocked. He signed back, slow and simple so I could follow. "You learned this for me." "Yes," I signed. "I want to talk to you." He reached across the table and held my face in his hands. He didn't say anything, he couldn't, or so I thought, but he looked at me with such intensity that I felt tears prick my eyes. I felt like a saint. That is the ugly truth. I felt like a good person. I felt superior to my sister, who only cared about money and status. I was caring about a soul. I was making a sacrifice. His mother, Margaret, fed this feeling. She called me every day. "You are an angel, Chloe," she would say. "Richard has been so dark since the accident. You are bringing the light back. He told me he feels safe with you." "I love him, Margaret," I said. "I know you do, and he needs you. You know, most women wouldn't do this. Most women want a man who can whisper in their ear, 'You are special. You are strong.'" I ate it up. I was 32, and for the first time I was the strong one. I was the special one. But there were signs I missed. There were moments that, looking back, make me sick to my stomach. There was a day I dropped a heavy ceramic bowl in his kitchen. It shattered on the tile floor with a massive crash. It was loud enough to make anyone jump. Richard was facing the sink, washing a glass. He didn't move. He didn't flinch. His back remained perfectly still. I remember thinking, wow, he really is completely deaf. He didn't feel the vibration. I swept up the shards, feeling a wave of sadness for him. He was cut off from the world. He couldn't hear the danger. He needed me to be his ears. I walked over and touched his back. He turned around, smiling, calm. I broke a bowl, I signed. He looked at the trash can where I had put the pieces. He looked sad. Be careful, he signed. I don't want you to get hurt. It was all an act, a performance. He had heard the crash. He had forced his body to stay still. He had commanded his reflexes to freeze. How much control does a man need to have to override his own instincts? How much calculation does it take to ignore a shattering sound just to keep up a lie? 6 months in, he proposed. It was silent, of course. We were hiking on a trail in the redwoods. The trees were tall and ancient. The air smelled of pine and damp earth. He stopped walking and pulled me toward a large fallen log. He got down on one knee. He didn't need to speak. He pulled out a ring box. Inside was a diamond that was too big, too clear. It caught the sunlight filtering through the trees. He signed, "Will you be my voice? Will you be my heart? Marry me." I cried, I nodded. I let him slide the ring onto my finger. It felt heavy. It felt like an anchor. We went back to my parents' house to tell them. My mother screamed with joy. She popped a bottle of champagne. "Finally," she yelled. "Finally, Chloe did it." She didn't say Chloe is happy. She said Chloe did it. Like I had finished a marathon. Like I had completed a task. My father, a quiet man who usually stayed out of my mother's way, shook Richard's hand. He spoke slowly and loudly, as if Richard was stupid, not deaf. "We are very happy to have you in the family." Richard just smiled and nodded. He looked humble. He looked grateful. Later that night, my sister Jessica cornered me in the kitchen. "Are you sure about this?" she asked. She didn't look jealous for once. She looked skeptical. "Of course I am," I said defensively. "It's going to be hard, Chloe," she said. A lifetime of silence. "Are you ready for that? You talk a lot. You need feedback. Can you really live with someone who can never hear you say, 'I love you' out loud?" "Our connection is deeper than words," I snapped. I sounded like a greeting card. I sounded like someone trying to convince themselves. "Okay," Jessica said, holding up her hands. "Just checking, he seems intense. He watches you like a hawk." "He watches me because he loves me," I said. I was wrong. He watched me because he was studying me. He was waiting for me to slip up. He was waiting to see if I would say something nasty about him when his back was turned. He was waiting to see if I was like the other women he feared, women who would mock him or use him. He was testing me. Every day was a test. And I was passing with flying colors, unaware that the test itself was a betrayal. I threw myself into wedding planning. I wanted everything to be perfect for him. I arranged for a sign language interpreter for the ceremony. I picked music with heavy bass so he might feel the rhythm on the floor. I made sure the lighting was bright so everyone could see hands moving. I was building a shrine to his disability. I was building a life around a hole that didn't exist. We married in Napa Valley in the spring. The vines were just starting to turn green. The air was crisp. It was an expensive wedding. His mother paid for almost everything. She wanted a show. She wanted everyone to see her generous son and his devoted wife. I walked down the aisle alone. My father offered to walk me, but I wanted to walk to Richard on my own terms. I wanted him to see me coming. When I reached the altar, the interpreter stood off to the side. The officiant spoke, and the interpreter signed. Then it was time for vows. I had written mine on a beautiful piece of parchment. I handed it to the officiant to hold, and I turned to Richard. I had practiced this for weeks. I was going to sign my vows. I took a deep breath. My hands shook slightly, but I steadied them. "Richard," I signed. "You have taught me the beauty of silence. You have taught me to listen with my eyes and my heart. I promise to be your partner. I promise to protect you. I promise to never let you feel alone in the quiet. I love you." A tear rolled down Richard's cheek. He wiped it away. He looked so moved. The guests were sniffling. I heard my mother blow her nose loudly. Everyone thought it was the most romantic thing they had ever seen. Richard signed back. His movements were fluid, native. "Chloe, you are my savior. You are the only person who sees me. I give you my life. I give you my trust. He kissed me. It was a gentle kiss. The crowd cheered. I felt triumphant. I was Mrs. Chloe Hayes Miller. I was a wife. I was a protector. We moved into his house in Palo Alto permanently. It was a modern house, full of glass and sharp angles. It was beautiful, but it was cold. The silence of the marriage set in immediately. Living with a deaf person, or someone pretending to be deaf, changes the physics of your home. You don't yell from the other room. You don't have the TV on in the background just for noise. You walk softly because there is no point in making noise. I stopped singing in the shower because I felt silly singing to an empty house. I stopped talking to myself while I cooked. I became quieter. I shrank. A month after the wedding, Richard sat me down at the dining table. He had his notepad. "I want you to quit your job," he wrote. I stared at the paper. "Why?" I signed. "I make enough money," he signed. "You are stressed. I want you to focus on us. I want to start a family. I need you here. It is hard for me to manage the house alone with my hearing. I miss deliveries. I can't call repairmen. I need you to be my manager." I felt a flash of resentment. I loved my job. I loved architecture. But then I looked at him. He looked helpless. He was a millionaire, a genius, but he couldn't call a plumber. "Okay," I whispered to the empty room. Then I signed okay. "I will do it." I quit my job the next week. My boss was disappointed. "You have talent, Chloe," he said. "Don't throw it away just to be a housewife." "I'm not just a housewife," I said defensively. "I'm a partner to a man who needs extra support." So I became his manager. I made his doctor appointments. I ordered his food. I dealt with the gardeners. I became his voice in every interaction. And then I got pregnant. I found out 5 months after the wedding. I took the test in the downstairs bathroom, 2 pink lines. I ran into the living room. Richard was reading a book. I didn't tap him. I just waved the stick in his line of sight. He looked up. He saw the stick. He dropped his book. He stood up and pulled me into a hug. He buried his face in my neck. I felt him shaking. I thought he was crying with joy. "We are going to be parents," I signed when he pulled away. "Yes," he signed. "A baby." My pregnancy was difficult. I was sick all the time. My back ached. My ankles swelled. But Richard was distant. He spent hours in his home office coding. The door was closed. He couldn't hear me if I called for help, so I had to walk all the way to his office, flash the lights, and wait for him to acknowledge me. Sometimes, I would vomit in the bathroom, heaving and gasping, and he would be in the next room, completely unaware. I felt so alone. I would wipe my mouth, flush the toilet, and walk out to see him calmly drinking tea. I started to feel a creeping resentment. It wasn't his fault, I told myself. He literally cannot hear me suffering. But it hurt. It hurt to be so physically miserable, and have your husband be oblivious unless you waved a flag in his face. I was 6 months pregnant when the cracks started to show, though I didn't recognize them as cracks at the time. One afternoon, I was on the phone with my sister. I was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables. I had the phone tucked between my ear and shoulder. "He's just so useless sometimes," I complained to Jessica. "I have to do everything. I have to be his ears for everything. I'm exhausted, Jess. I'm huge, I'm tired, and I just want him to, I don't know, hear me." I turned around. Richard was standing in the doorway. My heart stopped. I dropped the knife. He was looking at me. His face was blank. I quickly hung up the phone. "Richard," I signed, "you scared me. I didn't see you." He just stared at me. He didn't sign anything. He looked angry or disappointed. "What is wrong?" I signed. He shook his head. He turned and walked away. I chased after him. "Did you need something?" He wrote on a pad on the counter. "I just wanted water." "Don't worry." I let it go. I thought he was just in a bad mood. I didn't know that he had heard every word I said to my sister. I didn't know that I had failed one of his tests. I had complained. I had shown weakness. The atmosphere in the house changed after that. He was colder. He touched me less. He stopped leaving me sweet notes. I thought it was me. I thought I was being hormonal and ungrateful. I tried harder. I cooked his favorite meals. I gave him back rubs. I signed "I love you" 10 times a day. He would just nod. I didn't know the countdown had started. I didn't know he was deciding whether to keep the charade going or to blow it all up. It was a Tuesday. A rainy, gray Tuesday in November. I was 26 weeks pregnant. My belly was a tight, hard mound. I was wearing oversized sweatpants and one of Richard's old t-shirts. I was in the kitchen making a grocery list. We were out of milk. We were out of bread. I was writing on the yellow notepad we kept on the granite island. The house was silent, as always. The only sound was the hum of the refrigerator and the rain tapping against the glass. Richard had been in his office all day. I hadn't seen him since breakfast. I finished the list. I tore the page off. I was about to walk to his office to show him the list, to ask if he wanted anything specific. I didn't hear him walk in. He was wearing socks. I was facing the window, looking at the rain. Then it happened. Chloe. The word hung in the air. It wasn't a grunt. It wasn't a deaf person's vocalization, the kind that is loud and unmodulated because they can't hear their own volume. It was a spoken word, pitch perfect, baritone, smooth, controlled. Chloe put the pen down. My brain broke. For a second I thought there was an intruder. I thought someone had broken in. I spun around, clutching my chest. Richard was standing there. He was leaning against the refrigerator, his arms crossed over his chest. He looked calm, he looked bored. "Richard," I whispered. He didn't reach for a notepad. He didn't sign. He looked me in the eye and spoke. "Stop whispering, Chloe, I can hear you. I can hear the rain. I can hear the fridge humming, and I can hear your heart beating from here." I couldn't breathe, the room tilted, I grabbed the counter. "What?" I gasped. "What are you?" "You're talking." "I am," he said. "I'm talking, and you're listening, finally." "But the accident," I stammered. My hands were shaking so hard I dropped the grocery list. "You're deaf. You've been deaf for 5 years." "No," he said. "I haven't." He walked toward me. I stepped back. I was terrified. This wasn't my husband. This was a stranger wearing my husband's face. "I had the accident," he said, his voice casual, as if discussing the weather. I burst an eardrum. "It healed in 3 weeks. My hearing is perfect. Actually, it's better than average. I have sensitive hearing." "I don't understand," I cried. Tears were streaming down my face. Why did you lie? Why did you let me learn sign language? Why did we? The wedding, everything." "It was a test," he said. "A test. My mother's idea originally," he said. "But I agreed with it. You see, Chloe, I have a lot of money. I have a lot of assets. And I have very low tolerance for fake people. After the accident, I realized something. When people think you're broken, they show you who they really are. They stop trying to impress you with words. They treat you like furniture." He circled the island, coming closer. "I wanted a wife who wasn't in it for the chatter. I wanted a wife who would serve me, who would be patient, who would learn a whole new language just to please me. I wanted to see if you were capable of true devotion." "Devotion?" I screamed. "I scrubbed your floors, I quit my job, I have been living in silence for 2 years for you." "And you did a good job," he said. "Mostly, until lately. You've been complaining, Chloe, to your sister, calling me useless." My blood ran cold. "You heard that?" "I hear everything," he snapped. His voice was sharp now. "I hear you sigh when you pick up my socks. I hear you muttering when you do the dishes. You aren't as saintly as you pretend to be." "I am human," I yelled. "I am pregnant and tired." "You passed the entrance exam," he said coldly. "But you're failing the maintenance phase." "I'm bored of this, Chloe, I'm bored of the silence. It's exhausting pretending not to hear, so I'm done." "You're done?" I stared at him. "We are married, I am carrying your child." "I know," he said. "That complicates things. But I couldn't keep it up anymore. The charade is over. I can hear. Now make me a sandwich and use your voice, I'm sick of the hand waving." He turned his back on me. He turned his back on me and walked toward the living room, whistling. He was whistling a tune. I stood there in the kitchen, my hands clutching my pregnant belly. The betrayal wasn't just that he lied. It was the cruelty of it. He had watched me struggle. He had watched me cry over my inability to communicate with him. He had watched me make a fool of myself, day after day, year after year. And he had laughed. He and his mother had laughed. I wasn't a wife. I was a lab rat in a maze. I fell to the floor. I couldn't stand anymore. I sat on the cold tiles and wailed. And for the first time in our marriage, he didn't come to check on me. He just turned on the TV in the other room. Loud. The sound of the television from the living room was deafening. It was a game show. People were cheering. Bells were ringing. The noise washed over me, a cruel reminder that silence had never really existed in this house. It had only existed for me. I sat on the kitchen floor for a long time. My legs were numb. My baby kicked hard against my ribs, a sharp, rhythmic thud that made me feel sick. The baby. My child was half him. My child had the DNA of a liar. I needed to call someone. I needed to know how deep this went. I pulled my phone out of my pocket. My hands were trembling so badly, I dropped it twice before I could unlock the screen. Who do I call? I dialed Margaret first. His mother, the woman who had called me an angel, the woman who had cried at my wedding. She answered on the second ring. "Hello, Chloe, is everything all right?" Her voice was calm, warm. It made me want to scream. He speaks, I whispered. My voice was raw. There was a pause on the other end, a silence that was heavy and thick. She didn't gasp, she didn't ask what I meant. Oh, she said. Her tone shifted instantly. The warmth evaporated. She sounded like a business manager dealing with a complaint. He told you then. We thought he might wait until the baby was born, but, well, Richard has always been impulsive. You knew, I choked out. You knew the whole time. Of course I knew, Chloe, I'm his mother. You lied to me, I cried. You sat at dinner with me. You watched me learn sign language. You watched me hire tutors. You watched me cry because I couldn't communicate with him. You watched all of it. It was necessary, Margaret said sharply. Richard has trust issues. He has substantial wealth to protect. We needed to be sure you weren't like the others. We needed to be sure you were committed to him, not the lifestyle. And honestly, Chloe, look at how happy you were. You had a purpose. You felt needed. We gave you that. You gave me a lie, I screamed. We gave you a marriage, she corrected. Now stop being dramatic. He can hear. Isn't that good news? Most wives would be thrilled to find out their husband isn't disabled. You should be celebrating. Go wash your face. She hung up. I stared at the phone. My stomach churned. The room felt like it was shrinking, the walls closing in. Most wives would be thrilled. She was twisting reality. She was making me feel crazy for being hurt. I needed my mother. I needed the woman who had pushed me toward him, yes, but surely she didn't know. Surely my own mother wouldn't sell me into a fake marriage. I dialed her number. Hi, honey, she answered brightly. How are you? How is the baby? Mom, I said, Richard isn't deaf. What? She asked. He isn't deaf, he never was, he can hear, he just told me. I waited for the shock. I waited for the outrage. I waited for her to say, I'm coming to get you right now. Instead, she sighed, a long, relieved sigh. Finally, she said, oh, thank goodness. It was so hard keeping that secret, Chloe, you have no idea. The world stopped. The kitchen tiles felt like ice under my legs. You knew, I whispered. Well, not at first, she said quickly, backtracking. Not at the very beginning, but Margaret told me. Oh, about 3 months in, before the engagement. She explained the situation. She explained that Richard needed to test you, and honestly, Chloe, I agreed with her. You agreed. I couldn't breathe. You agreed to let me live a lie. You agreed to let me marry a stranger. It wasn't a lie, it was a strategy, my mother snapped. Look at you, Chloe, you were 32, you were lonely, you were going nowhere. Richard is a millionaire, he is handsome, he is successful. So what if he played a little game? He chose you. He married you, you have a house in Palo Alto, you have a child on the way, I did what I had to do to secure your future. You sold me, I said. I helped you, she yelled. I thought it would help you grow up. I thought if you felt needed you would stop being so passive. And it worked. You learned a language, you ran a household, you stepped up, you should be thanking me. Thanking you, I stood up. The rage was a hot, white light in my brain. I am pregnant, Mom. I am pregnant by a man who has been laughing at me for 2 years, and you helped him. Chloe, don't be hysterical. I didn't let her finish. I pulled the phone away from my ear. I looked at it. It was a sleek black device. It was the tool they used to coordinate their lies. I turned and threw it as hard as I could. It hit the wall above the stove. The screen shattered, the case cracked. It fell to the floor dead. Silence returned to the kitchen. But this time it wasn't peaceful. It was violent. I wasn't just betrayed by a husband. Husbands cheat, husbands lie. That is a story as old as time. But my mother, my family, they had looked at me and decided I was not a person who deserved the truth. They decided I was a project. A problem to be solved. They thought I was so pathetic that I needed to be tricked into a happy life. I walked to the sink and vomited. I dry-heaved until my throat burned. I wiped my mouth with the back of my hand. I looked at the hallway leading to the living room. Richard was still in there. I could hear the TV. He knew I was in here crying. He knew I was on the phone. He heard every word, and he didn't care. That was the scariest part. He wasn't afraid of losing me. He was so arrogant, so sure of his power, that he thought he could just switch the rules of our marriage in the middle of the game, and I would just accept it. I walked upstairs. I moved slowly. My body felt heavy, like I was walking underwater. I went into the bedroom, our bedroom, the bed where we had conceived our child. I grabbed a duffel bag from the closet. I didn't pack everything. I didn't pack the clothes he bought me. I didn't pack the jewelry. I packed my sweatpants, my old t-shirts, my comfortable shoes. I packed my prenatal vitamins. I packed the photo of my grandmother I kept on the nightstand. I walked to the bookshelf. There was a row of books, Mastering ASL, The Joy of Signing, Deaf Culture in America. I looked at them. I wanted to burn them right there on the rug, but I didn't. I left them. They belonged to the lie. I was leaving the lie behind. I walked downstairs. Richard was in the kitchen now making a sandwich. He looked at me. He saw the bag. "Where are you going?" he asked. His voice was casual. "Out," I said. It was the first time I had spoken to him knowing he could hear. It felt strange. It felt forbidden. "Don't be dramatic, Chloe," he said, taking a bite of turkey. "You're pregnant. You have nowhere to go. Your mother is on my side." I heard the call. "You hear everything right," I said. "I do," he smirked. "Sit down, eat something, you'll get over it. We have a good life, don't throw it away just because your ego is bruised." I looked at him. I looked at his handsome face, his working ears, his cruel mouth. "It's not my ego," I said softly. "It's my reality." I walked out the door. I got into my car. I didn't look back. I drove to San Francisco. The rain was coming down harder now, blurring the lights of the highway into long, red streaks. I couldn't see well. I was crying, but silently. It was a steady stream of tears that just wouldn't stop. I didn't go to my parents' house. I would never go there again. I went to Jessica's. My sister lived in a townhouse in the Marina District. It was narrow and expensive. I parked in her driveway and just sat there for 10 minutes. I was shaking. I was 7 months pregnant, homeless and husbandless. I rang the doorbell. Jessica answered. She was wearing yoga pants and holding a glass of wine. She looked annoyed at first, then her face dropped when she saw me. "Chloe," she said. "My God, you look like a ghost. What happened?" I couldn't speak. I just pointed to my belly, then to my ears, then to the car. I couldn't form the sentence, "Richard isn't deaf." It sounded too stupid. She pulled me inside. She sat me on her beige sofa. She got me a blanket. "Talk to me," she commanded. "Did he hit you?" "He spoke to me," I whispered. Jessica frowned. "What? He spoke. He isn't deaf, Jess. He never was. It was a test." Mom knew. His mom knew. It was all a game. Jessica stared at me. Her mouth opened, then closed. She set her wine glass down on the coffee table hard. "He faked it?" she asked. "Yes, for 2 years. Yes, and Mom knew." "Yes." Jessica stood up. She walked to the window. She walked back to the sofa. She looked like she was trying to calculate the physics of what I had just said. "I knew he was weird," she muttered. "I told you, remember? I said he watched you like a hawk. I said it was intense. But this is psychotic, Chloe. This is a thriller movie plot." "I have nowhere to go," I said. "I can't go home." "You are staying here," she said firmly. "For as long as you need. Dave is on a business trip. You can have the guest room." She sat next to me and hugged me. Jessica and I had never been very close. We were competitive. She was the golden child, and I was the disappointment. But in that moment, the rivalry vanished. She was a woman, and I was a woman, and we were both looking at the sheer insanity of what men and mothers could do. "Mom called me a project," I cried into her shoulder. "Mom is a narcissist," Jessica said, stroking my hair. "We both know that, but this is a new low. Don't worry, I've got you. We're going to handle this." The next few weeks were a blur of gray survival. I slept in Jessica's guest room. I spent my days staring at the ceiling. I felt like I had been in a cult and had just escaped. I had to deprogram myself. I would catch myself not flushing the toilet to avoid noise. I would catch myself gesturing with my hands when I spoke to Jessica. Every time I did it, I felt a fresh wave of humiliation. I had trained myself to be a dog for a master who didn't exist. Richard tried to contact me. He texted, "Come home. Stop acting like a child. We have a baby to think about." I blocked his number. He sent flowers. Huge, expensive bouquets of white lilies. I threw them in the trash compactor. He sent emails. "My mother wants to apologize. She thinks you are overreacting." I deleted them. I was in survival mode. I focused on the baby. I rubbed my belly. "It's just us," I whispered to her. "I won't lie to you, I promise." One afternoon, I found a box in my trunk. It was a box of flashcards I had used to learn ASL. Pictures of hands making shapes. A for apple, B for boy. I took the box to Jessica's fireplace. I lit a fire. I sat there on the rug. The heat was intense. I took the first card, family. 2 hands circling each other. I threw it in the fire. The cardboard curled and blackened. The word family disappeared in a burst of orange flame. I took the next card, trust. 1 hand grasping the other. I threw it in. I sat there for an hour, feeding the fire with my vocabulary. I burned love. I burned husband. I burned forever. It was petty. It didn't change anything. But it felt good. It felt like I was cleaning out the inside of my brain. I was 8 months pregnant now. I was huge. My back killed me. I had to pee every 20 minutes. I was unemployed. My bank account was dwindling. I felt terrified. How was I going to raise a child alone? How was I going to fight Richard? He had millions. He had lawyers. He could take my baby. That fear woke me up at night. I would lie there, sweating, imagining him walking into a courtroom and speaking in that smooth, confident voice, telling the judge I was unstable. I needed help. Not just a sister. I needed a professional. I told Jessica at breakfast, I need a therapist and I need a lawyer. I already found them, Jessica said, sliding a piece of paper across the table. The lawyer is a shark. She ate her own husband for breakfast. And the therapist specializes in, well, trauma, betrayal trauma. I looked at the names. Thank you, I said. Don't thank me, Jessica said, buttering her toast aggressively. Just promise me one thing, when you see him again. Don't let him silence you. You have a voice, Chloe. Use it, scream if you have to. I won't scream, I said. I'm done screaming. Good, she said. Then make him listen. Dr. Evans had a kind face and an office that smelled like lavender and old books. She didn't look like my mother. She didn't look like Margaret. She looked like someone who had heard terrible stories and survived them. I told her everything. I told her about the notes, the silence, the tests, the whistle. She listened without interrupting. She took notes. When I finished, she took off her glasses. Chloe, she said, what you experienced is a form of psychological abuse called gaslighting. But on a scale I have rarely seen. He didn't just deny your reality, he constructed a false one. He made you an actor in a play you didn't know you were in. He says he did it because he's insecure, I said. He says he wanted to be loved for himself. That is the justification of a narcissist, she said. He wanted control. A disabled man who needs a helper is in control of that helper. A man who can hear but pretends he can't holds all the cards. He knew everything you said. He knew your secrets. You knew nothing of his. I want to see him, I said. Dr. Evans raised an eyebrow. Why? Because we are having a child, I said, and because I need to see him without the mask. I need to see who I actually married. We set up a session. Richard agreed to come. I think he thought he could charm the therapist. I think he thought he could explain his logic, and everyone would nod and say, ah yes, clever man. He walked into the office wearing a suit. He looked tired. He looked at me, then at my belly. He reached out to touch me. I stepped back. No, he flinched. He sat down on the leather sofa. I sat in the armchair. Dr. Evans sat between us. So, Richard said, his voice filling the room. It was still jarring to hear him speak. We are doing this. We are, Dr. Evans said. Richard, why did you lie to your wife for 2 years? I didn't lie about who I was, Richard said defensively. I am Richard. I am a coder. I am a quiet man. I just omitted the hearing part. You omitted the primary way humans connect, I said. You watched me struggle, Richard. You watched me cry. I was protecting us, he snapped. Do you know what it's like to be worth $50 million? Everyone wants something. My cousins, my friends, my ex-girlfriends, they all want a piece. I wanted a wife who would love me even if I was broken, even if I was a burden. I loved you, I said. I loved the man I thought you were. The man who was vulnerable, but that man doesn't exist. You aren't vulnerable. You are the most guarded person I have ever met. I was afraid, he said. His voice cracked. It sounded like a performance, but then I looked at his hands. They were twisting together. I was afraid you would leave if you knew I was just normal. I'm not interesting, Chloe. I'm just a nerd who got lucky with an algorithm. The deafness, it made me special. It made me tragic. I looked at him, really looked at him. He wasn't a monster. He was a pathetic, small man. He had built a fortress of silence because he felt empty inside. He needed me to be a saint so he could feel like a god. I won't come back, I said. Chloe, please, he said. The baby. I won't come back to that house, I said. And I won't come back to the marriage we had. That marriage is dead. I burned it. Then what do we do? He asked. He looked lost. For the first time, he didn't look like the mastermind. He looked like a man who had overplayed his hand and lost the pot. We start over, I said. Or we divorce. Those are the options. But if we start over, there are rules. What rules? Total honesty, I said. No more tests. No more games with your mother. You tell her to back off. You tell my mother to back off. It's just us. Okay, he said. And I added, my voice shaking slightly. No more sign language, ever. I never want to see you move your hands again. You speak to me. You look me in the eye and you speak. He looked down at his hands. He nodded. Okay, and separate houses, I said. Until I trust you, which might be never. I can wait, he said. I'm good at waiting. I know, I said coldly. You waited 2 years to say hello. The therapy sessions continued. They were brutal. Richard admitted to things that made my skin crawl. He admitted to listening to my phone calls. He admitted to reading my diary while I was in the shower. It was invasive, it was sick, but it was the truth. And for the first time, I felt like I was standing on solid ground. It was ugly ground, rocky and sharp, but it was real. I moved into a small apartment in the city. Richard paid for it. It was the least he could do. I set up a nursery. I bought a crib. I prepared to be a mother. I prepared to bring a girl into a world where men lied and women survived. I promised myself I would teach her the difference between silence and peace. My water broke at 3 a.m. I was alone in my apartment. I called Jessica. She came immediately. We drove to the hospital. I texted Richard. It's time. He met us there. He looked terrified. He was pale. He stood in the corner of the delivery room while the nurses hooked me up to monitors. The pain was unlike anything I had ever felt. It was a tidal wave that kept crashing over me. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. Breathe, Chloe, the nurse said. Focus on a point. I squeezed my eyes shut. I was panicking. The room was too loud. The machines were beeping. Then I felt a hand on mine. Chloe, a voice said, low, steady. Look at me. I opened my eyes. Richard was there. He wasn't looking at the machines. He was looking at me. You can do this, he said. Focus on my voice, just my voice. I hate you, I gritted out through a contraction. I know, he said. That's okay, hate me. Just breathe. It was strange. His voice, the voice that had been the weapon of his betrayal, became my anchor. It was strong. It was present. He talked me through every wave. He didn't sign. He didn't retreat. He used his words to build a rope, and he pulled me through the pain. Claire was born at 6:12 a.m. She screamed. It was a loud, piercing scream. Richard started to cry, real tears. He touched her tiny hand. She's loud, he laughed, wiping his eyes. She's so loud. Good, I whispered. She should be. Seeing him hold her softened something in me. It wasn't forgiveness. Forgiveness is a big word, a heavy door that takes a long time to open. It was more like a truce. I saw a father falling in love with his daughter. I saw a man who was desperate to connect, even if he didn't know how. We didn't move back in together right away. I stayed in my apartment for a year. Richard visited every day. He changed diapers. He rocked her to sleep. He learned to be a parent. We went to dinner once a week. We talked. It was awkward. We had to learn how to have a conversation. We had skipped the dating phase and gone straight to the trauma. Now we had to go back and fill in the blanks. What is your favorite color? I asked him one night over pasta. Green, he said. Because of the trees. What's yours? Yellow, I said. Like the sun. Simple things, banal things, but true things. One night after he dropped Claire and me off, he stood at the door. I miss you, he said. I miss the quiet. I don't, I said. I like the noise, I like hearing you breathe. He looked at me with those dark eyes. Can I come home, really home? I thought about it. I thought about the betrayal, the humiliation, the anger. It was all still there, like a scar on my skin. But the wound wasn't bleeding anymore. Not yet, I said, but maybe soon. It took 2 more years of therapy, 2 more years of radical honesty. We had fights, bad fights. I threw things, he yelled back. We were messy, we were loud. But we were real. We eventually moved into a new house. Not the glass house in Palo Alto. A messy, old Victorian in San Francisco with creaky floors. A house that made noise. We built a life. It wasn't the fairy tale my mother wanted. It wasn't the silent sanctuary his mother wanted. It was a loud, chaotic, imperfect life. I am 68 years old now. I am sitting on the back porch of that Victorian house. The wood is worn under my feet. The garden is overgrown just the way I like it. Richard is inside. He is 72. His hearing is actually failing now, for real this time. He wears hearing aids. The irony isn't lost on us. We laugh about it sometimes. What? He says when I ask him a question. Turn your ears up, old man, I say, and he smiles. Claire is 35. She is an architect like me. She is loud and fierce and takes no nonsense from anyone. She knows the story. We told her everything when she was 18. She looked at her father and said, "You were an idiot, Dad." And he said, "I was." And that was it. I look back at that moment in the kitchen. The moment the note dropped. The moment the voice spoke. I thought it was the end of my life. I thought I would break into a million pieces and never be whole again. And I did break. I shattered. But here is the thing about shattering. When you put the pieces back together, you don't have to put them back the same way. You can leave out the parts that don't fit. You can leave out the silence. You can leave out the shame. I rebuilt myself. I didn't do it for Richard. I didn't do it to save the marriage. I did it because I refused to be a victim forever. I refused to be the woman who was tricked. I wanted to be the woman who chose. I chose to stay. Not because I was weak, but because I saw a path to something real. I saw a man who was willing to be broken down and built back up. Forgiveness wasn't a gift I gave him. He didn't deserve it. Forgiveness was freedom for me. It was the only way to get the noise out of my head. It was the only way to stop hearing the lies and start hearing the truth. I sip my tea. I hear Richard shuffling in the kitchen. I hear him humming a song. It's off-key. It's annoying. It is the most beautiful sound in the world, if you are listening to this. If you are feeling trapped in a silence that isn't yours, tell me where you are watching from. And remember this, we all have voices. Even the quiet ones. Even the broken ones. Don't let anyone take yours away. Not for love, not for money, not for peace. Make them listen. Sometimes the loudest betrayals come from the people who once lived in silence. But the sweetest victory is finding the courage to speak your own truth, loud and clear over the wreckage. I put my mug down, I stand up, I walk inside to find my husband. Richard, I say, he turns, he smiles. I hear you, he says. I know, I say, and for the first time in a long time it is enough.